Welcome to Evil Done Badly, the worst true crime podcast in the history of the world. We've got a terrible episode this week, and it's going to be our first real video on YouTube. You're actually going to see Dick in person. So if Dick is not annoying enough for you in podcast form, imagine how much you'll hate him on video. Wow. That's some extra value right there. So cut him a little bit of slack here. He's not really that comfortable in front of the camera, so it'll be pretty awkward. And but if you soldier along with us, though, it'll be greatly appreciated, and I hope you come back next week. But before we get into this horrendous video experience, let's grab ourselves a couple of beverages, hold on to our delectable arses, and let's hear the theme song. This episode of Evil Done Badly is brought to you by the wide world of paranormal investigations and ridiculous thrifter groups on Facebook. Both groups are ridiculously fun and paranormally popular. Ridiculous Thrifter has just passed 15,000 members, and the wide world of paranormal investigations is getting dangerously close to 20,000 members. That's a shitload of fans. Someday I hope to be able to gloat about the numbers we get on this show. I mean, right now we have 14 subscribers on YouTube, and I figure that's kind of impressive. Of course, by the end of this video, we could have lost some of those. There's no guarantee they'll all still be here. I mean, a few of them are bound to come to their senses and unsub from the channel. But okay, I'm done wallowing. We're inferior. We get it. Okay, now let's get back to the show. Let's go back to California in the late 1970s. Now, I was barely alive in the 70s, and I'm certainly not from anywhere with any sunshine or beaches. But I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the 22 million people that lived in California in the late 70s were at least a little bit horny. And back in the late 70s, you couldn't just hop onto your phone and load up an app like Horror Dash or something and order someone to help you take care of your horniness. In order to meet somebody and you wanted to take care of business, you would have to go out and go to the park, walk a dog, go to the library, maybe the church, disco, something. And in order to increase your chances of meeting up with a new fuck buddy, it helped to be suave and smooth. I'm no expert, but I don't think anyone was all that smooth in the 70s. Who writes this shit? So some people even resorted to going on television when they were looking for someone to meet with. Television is the thing people used to watch before Rick Astley made the internet popular. Before you could watch Johnny Depp complain that someone took a shit in his bed in real time, you could watch strangers embarrass themselves in hopes of getting into another stranger's pants. A show called The Dating Game ran on ABC, and that featured single people blindly asking each other mortifying questions such as, describe your perfect date, or, if you were an animal, what kind would you be? I mean, this idea, it actually embarrasses me. It hurts to listen to this shit. I mean, I run a very terrible, lousy, embarrassing podcast, so I have no shame whatsoever. But doing this shit, going on camera and flirting in front of an audience and just trying to be natural and stuff like that, that's fucking gross. Wow, I can't believe this actually happened. And the funny thing is, this show had 4 different stints on TV and ran in total for around 10 years. I'd rather spend the next decade getting rickrolled than have to sit through that crap. You're probably feeling pretty much the same way right about now. Right about now, you'd probably give anything to hear Never Gonna Give You Up. But that ain't happening. You ain't getting rickrolled here, and you won't be hearing anything nearly that catchy on this show. But why am I telling you all this in the first place? Well, there's an incident in 1978 where a cocky prick who thought he was pretty smooth went on the show and found someone to love. 35-year-old Rodney Alcala signed up to try his luck and appeared on The Dating Game as Bachelor number 1. It's a good number, I guess. And the lucky bachelorette was named Cheryl Bradshaw. And she was auditioning to 3 horny bastards on the other side of the stage for a date, and of course, the possibility of an unfettered, whirlwind romance. It's all very heartwarming. Now, the show is known for its barely concealed sexual undertones. And during the interview, Rodney got to brag about how, the best stuff happens in the nighttime, and he got to compare his genitalia to a banana. So as you can see, he's a very smooth guy. Now, just from looking at this guy, not to judge a book by its cover or anything, but you can tell he's kind of sleazy, and I probably wouldn't trust him to look after an aquarium full of sea monkeys, let alone want to marry him. And I mean, that's even before he opens his mouth. After you've heard him, he gets even greasier. But that doesn't matter. The other two losers he was competing against were even less smooth, and somehow Rodney winds up winning the chance to go on a date with Cheryl. Yay! It's a match made in heaven. And they lived happily ever after and died at the ripe old age of 162 in each other's arms. Except Bert didn't. Because by happily ever after, I mean, well, Cheryl and Alcala meet after the show to make arrangements to go out to an amusement park and, just kind of see if sparks are going to fly here. But they don't even get that far because, well, she meets him in person and she just flat out refuses to go out with him. I mean, he turned on the charm and something about him creeped her the fuck out. He gave her the willies and she sent him on his way. I'm guessing he got some sort of consolation prize, like maybe a subscription to Reader's Digest or something. Either way, Cheryl had no interest in Rodney's banana, and I don't think she was legally obligated to do anything for this slimy cunt. So, there you go. Move on, Rodney. Get out of here. You stink. You're funny. It wouldn't become clear exactly how much of a cunt this Alcala guy was until a couple of years later. It had turned out that Cheryl had just dodged one hell of a bullet by rejecting this idiot's advances. See, the dating game people didn't really care who appeared on the show. They just wanted guys and gals who weren't fuck ugly enough to scare off the viewers. And if they had looked a little bit into Alcala's past, they would have discovered that he had done almost 3 years in prison for beating and raping an 8-year-old girl. Now, that's a big fucking oops. This bastard, he should have been executed, not put on national television for the hook up with girls. Come on. He also previously made an appearance on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. So this is just the type of guy you want to have on daytime television talking about his fruit. Now, when it all shakes out, it's found that by the time Alcala had made his appearance on the dating game, he was responsible for at least 2 confirmed murders. And he's the prime suspect on at least 2 more murders pre-1978. In 1977, the nude body of 18-year-old Jill Barcombe was found dumped on Mulholland Drive in California. She was raped, strangled, and beaten to death with a rock. This brutal slaying was originally thought to be part of the Hillside Stranglers resume. But it wasn't. It would be conclusively linked to Alcala later on. And Alcala was interviewed about this particular killing, because, believe it or not, he was on a sex offenders list, but he managed to weasel his way out of it, and in the process, he does get nabbed for petty drug possession. Wow, big fucking deal. Now, December of the same year, 27-year-old Georgia Wickstead would fall victim to this smooth-talking asshole as well. Alcala charmed his way into her apartment by beating his way through the door. Poor Georgia suffered virtually the same fate as Jill Barcombe, only this time he threw in some genital mutilation as well. He probably had more time because he was in her apartment and not outside. Georgia was beaten to death with a hammer, and Alcala would later be linked to the murder by DNA evidence. So yeah, this is shaping up. This guy is a real piece of fucking shit. Now this piece of shit gets on the dating game in early 1978 and deals with his heartbreaking rejection from Cheryl by strangling and raping 32-year-old Charlotte Lamb in the laundry room of her apartment building. Charlotte's DNA would be found on a pair of earrings that was later recovered from a storage unit belonging to who? Rodney Alcala. This guy is a fucking scumbag, and it's beverage time. In June 1979, Jill Parento missed a day of work, which is not unusual. People miss work all the time. But she missed that day of work because Alcala had beaten his way into her apartment and had his way with her as well. She had been assaulted and strangled and left lying naked on her bathroom floor. Alcala's blood was found at the scene. But with the wonders of 1979 crime-fighting technology, no one knew it was his blood at the time. They did blood typing on it, and it didn't confirm or deny Alcala's involvement in the whole thing. Of course, it was discovered later that this blood was actually inside Alcala at one point, and poor Jill here will be another one of his confirmed victims. On June 20th, 1979, 12-year-old Robin Samso and her friend Bridget were playing in the rocks at Huntington Beach. Now, they are approached by a man who's inappropriately trying to coax them into posing for his camera. A friendly neighbor got wind of what was happening and shooed the creepy weirdo away from the girls. Alcala was stymied in his attempt to take provocative pictures of the children, but he would not be denied in his need to be a fucking sicko. Robin was riding a yellow bike to her ballet class later that day, and she and the bicycle would go missing. She would not be found for another 12 days. She would be found in the Los Angeles National Forest by a couple of park rangers. She was badly decomposed and was missing parts of her hands and feet. Her skull had been detached from her neck, and a kitchen knife and one of her shoes was found nearby. So, yep. This guy's a fucking cunt. And he needs to be euthanized painfully. So we'll see how that goes. Now, here's where it all starts to come apart for Alcala. It turns out that 12 days earlier, one of the park rangers who had found the body took note of a man and a child walking toward a nearby stream. She noted the vehicle model, a Datsun F10, whatever the fuck that is. I mean, it must have been a real love machine if it turned out that Alcala had one. And after Robin's body was found, the friendly neighbor and the friendly friend were able to provide police with a sketch of the perv with the camera. That's the same one that they had shooed away on the morning of the 20th. Now, the sketch made the rounds on the local news, and a bunch of witnesses came forward saying that Alcala had tried to take their pictures, amongst other things, such as giving them weed and, well, asking children to be in his bikini contest. This guy's gross. So, with all this publicity, the picture winds up catching the attention of Alcala's parole officer, who sends him in the direction of, hey, his mom's place in Monterey Park. Yeah, that's real suave and smooth. That's a great pickup line. Hey, I live with my mom because I'm a sex offender and I can't afford to live anywhere else. Yeah. So while searching through the junk at Mom's house, they find a key that belongs to the storage locker that Alcala had been renting. When they searched that, they found exactly what you would expect. A creepy pedophile photographer to keep in a storage unit. They found numerous photographs of young girls, including girls who'd already ratted him out, various earrings, and they belonged to some of the missing young girls. Now, he claimed the earrings were his own. Right, jackets. Now, how weird would that be? You're not fooling anybody, Alcala. One pair of these earrings will be traced back to Robin Samso, and I mean, it was weird for a guy to have earrings back then. And this will come up later in a pathetic attempt to clear himself. So, based on the storage locker and the witness testimony, this fucker is nabbed and charged with the murder of Robin Samso. Alcala, he goes to trial, and he comes up with some flimsy alibi about being a photographer at a disco during the murder. As you can expect, it fails to connect with the jury. He's found guilty of kidnapping and murder, and he's sentenced to death. Yay! The only problem is, in 1980, his death sentence is overturned on some sort of half-assed technicality. He stays in jail. He gets convicted and sentenced to die again for the same murder in 1986. And for an equally horseshit reason, this is also overturned in 2001. Now, if they had just got on with it and hanged this guy somewhere in the last 15 years, they wouldn't have to bother with this asshole anymore. Not to mention, this bastard would constantly complain about the prison food he was provided. They wouldn't accommodate his diet or something. I mean, I think he should have been provided with maggot sandwiches without any bread on them. And even that's too good for him. No, that's cruel to the maggots. So this is a travesty of justice, and is dragging on for an ungodly amount of time. It drags on so long that through marvelous advances in DNA technology, Alcala's jizz is conclusively linked to the other 4 murders we talked about earlier as well. So in 2010, he's finally sentenced to death 5 times over. And that is awesome. Kill him 5 times. Wipe him off the face of the earth. And here we go. He represented himself in court. And as a funny note, he was extremely vocal on his opposition to DNA testing. He opposed DNA testing on the grounds that it made him look like a rapey, murderous cunt. What? Yeah, okay, yeah. We'll stop doing it because it makes you look innocent. Yeah, right. So he spends 5 hours questioning himself and talking back and forth in different voices and trying to convince the court that he was innocent. Wow, it didn't work, and it just made him look more unhinged and guilty. He resorted to playing the dating game footage of himself to try and convince everyone that he did, in fact, own the earrings found in the storage locker. And they told him to go fuck himself and take his grainy beta tape and work it up his arse. So that didn't go so well. Now, that's the 5 confirmed murders. And while he's on death row, he gets convicted of 2 more murders in New York, bringing his total to 7. He gets another 25 years to life added to his punishment because New York didn't have the death penalty at the time. So, if you were hoping for a public beheading in Times Square, you're probably not going to get that anytime soon. There's also a reasonable chance he's responsible for many more killings and is a prime pervert of interest in numerous sexual assaults. The pictures found in the storage unit led the police to trying to track down the whereabouts of about 120 different people who are depicted. About 20 of these people have confirmed themselves as being alive, and at least 6 of them have been identified by family members of these people who had gone missing and are as yet unfound. So that looks really bad. Now, it seems likely that Alcala might be involved in those disappearances. Of course, there is a slight possibility that Alcala took their pictures, yeah, and he let them go for whatever reason. He didn't kill them, and then these poor people ran across some other sicko who made them disappear. But I like to blame Alcala because he's a cunt. The pictures of the unknown subjects are still available for viewing, on the slim chance that someone will recognize them and be able to provide information on their current status. So, exactly how many murders did this nut job actually do? It's a weird question because official estimates range anywhere from 9 to 130. That's a big number. My guess is that it's noticeably more than 9 and, well, noticeably less than 130. I figure it's probably somewhere in between 15 and 20. But what the fuck do I know? Alcala himself is the only one who knows. And he took that information to the grave. He died on July 24th, 2021 of natural causes at the age of 77. I hope that means he choked on his own shriveled, worm-infested testicles. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that, quote, quoting myself here, "Hey, California, you could have fed a lot of homeless people for what it costs to keep this fucktard alive for the last 40 years. End quote. And I'd also like to say that, quote, Rodney Alcala, no one likes you, and you should have fried years ago, you stupid cunt. Thank you. End quote. And there you have it. Another inept episode of the worst true crime podcast ever. Evil Done Badly is in the books. If you would like to reach out and suggest future episode topics, we can be reached on Instagram at evildonebadly or by email at evildonebadly@gmail.com. So thanks again to our few regular listeners. I'm glad you're here. My name is Dick, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.